Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm doing something a bit different today. This should be going live on the 24th of December, which will be the 2-year anniversary of my father passing away. In early 2019, he had started having some stomach problems, and his doctors weren't really sure what was wrong with him, and long story short, it turned out to be an undiagnosed tumor in his pancreas, and it was too much, and before he even got to surgery, the rest of his body gave out. So yeah, so it's been 2 years. As I had mentioned in my Disconnect December video, it was really rough at first, and it's still not completely easy. It's still there, but it's not as difficult as 2020 was. 2020 was rough for me. But the point of this video is not for me to focus on the negatives of the situation. Like yes, he passed away. Yes, I was incredibly distraught and upset, and I mean I still am. The circumstances sucked. But this is me just, I wanted to talk about him. So that's what this is going to be. It's a memoriam of sorts. So my dad was an incredibly nice person. And I'm not just saying that because he was my dad. I did not get any of those traits. He had no issue talking to strangers. He had no issue just walking up to someone and being nice to them, offering them help. Like, opposite of me. Like, just genuinely nice guy. Like, in our later year, like, I wouldn't say me and my brother were spoiled as kids. I don't think we were. We had a good upbringing, and we always had food on our plates, and we always had toys and video games and stuff like that, and pets and stuff and things like that. We lived in a house. We didn't have to live in an apartment except when I was really young. But we were never spoiled. But in our later years, my dad definitely turned the corner on that, because there were many times I would go visit him at his apartment where he lived with my brother for many years. It took more me being forceful with him to not leave his apartment with like a bag full of groceries, because he'd be like, I bought all this extra stuff at the store, it was on sale, I'm not going to eat it, here's a bag of stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? But no, he, like, jokes aside, he always took care of us. He more often than not put us in front of him, which that got there was definitely some annoying moments, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, excellent guy. Loved him. Miss him dearly. I think about him all the time. He still pops up in my dreams. People have told me that happens with dead relatives as well. But yeah, like every once in a while, just be in my dream. Like not even a thought that he's passed. He's just there doing something, or I've gone to go see him for something. But yeah, so my dad dug me and my brother out of way more holes than I can count. So many times, I'll speak on my own behalf. There were many times in my younger years, like when I had first gotten a job and did not understand the concept of money at all. um, and would just frivolously go through my paychecks and like overdraw my bank accounts, like, and I'm talking like hundreds and hundreds of dollars at a time when I was making maybe less than $200 a week, maybe. So like I there were many times I dug myself into a hole, and he would go down to the bank with me, or my mom did too a couple of times, and he would pay off the debt, and then I would have to pay him back. But like ridiculous. There was the time uh years later I had I think it was my third car. He also was the one who gave me my first car. I mean, it was our family vehicle for well over a decade, but he didn't charge me, and it was my first car, and I drove that car into the ground. The ground. I don't think I have any pictures of it anymore. Another thing that annoys me about my Facebook getting hacked and just deleted because I lost a bunch of stuff I didn't have saved. But yeah, so he gave me my first car, and yeah, it was on its last leg when I got it, and I just nope, I kept going until I needed to get it renewed for emissions, I think, and they were like, for you to pass emissions, it's gonna be $2,500 worth of repairs, and guess what? I didn't have that. But years later, on my third vehicle, which was this tan station wagon, a Mercury Sable, when we bought it, or I bought it, but like he took me to go get it. It was Summers, I think. There was the person who had it before me had a coolant leak, and I guess what had happened was, because they found this out afterwards, was, you know, that stop leak stuff you buy at like AutoZone or something for like, if you got a leak, you're not supposed to actually use that and then like, you know, keep using it, and then keep using the car. It's not what you're supposed to do. So I didn't know that was in the system. So I started to have an overheating problem at one point, but it seemed minimal. And I was driving to a friend's house for 4th of July, and he lived at the top of this fucking hill. Ridiculous. Like literally driving up a mountain. It fucking sucked. But car was having an overheating problem at that time. And as I was making it somewhat up the hill, me being stubborn, the car started to have some problems. And I was like, well, I mean, if I get it up to the top of the hill, I can just turn the car off and it'll be fine. By the time I got to the top of that hill, the gauge for the heat was like vertical, which this is high, so it shouldn't be there. And by the time I stopped my car, smoke flooded out of the engine area. And yeah, so on top of getting really, really wasted that evening because, hey, I don't have a car anymore, so I mean, what am I gonna do? I went home, or I got home, I got a ride home, and the next day, my dad, who I had called when this happened, my dad drove me up to Rockville to go pick up the car, and we slowly got the car back to my house in Manchester without towing it, which in retrospect is insane, because this car, I had just destroyed the engine, or at least that's what I thought. So we drove the car. I drove the car little by little. Basically, we went there early in the morning when it was still cold, and I started the car up, and I drove it as far as I could until that heat gauge started going up. And then I stopped the car. I put a bunch of water. Something had happened with the coolant tank, I think. I think it might have, like, I don't think it exploded, but something had happened at this time, like when all this was going on. It might have cracked or something. So we kept stopping. Like, we would stop every mile, 2 maybe, and put water in the coolant tank with some like coolant to kind of get it to calm the hell down to see if I can get it home. And so this took driving it might have been 10 miles in total at the most, maybe between 8 and 10. It took probably an hour and a half doing this, and we finally got it home. And I was living at my mom's house at the time, and she lived with this guy who had a son who claimed to be a mechanic. And he was like, "Yeah, I'll take a look at your car tomorrow." He waited 3 days to tell me he couldn't do anything with the car, so that was 3 days where I didn't have a car. And then so we finally got it towed to no, maybe I drove it again. No, I want to say we towed it this time. To a mechanic, told him what the problem was. They sent it to a second mechanic who was a specialist, and he got my car and said, "Yeah, we can fix this, but it's not going to be cheap." So I was kind of torn between, well, I just bought this car and it's going to cost about the same amount of money that I spent for the car to fix the car. And my dad kind of was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I was like, "Keep the car?" So my dad ended up lending me $2,500 just off, like, just, "Here you go. It's $2,500. Pay me back as you can." And that was the only time in my life I've ever gotten 2 jobs, because I was like, I am paying him back. I don't care how annoyed I'm going to be that I'm working like 75 hours a week. I'm going to pay this guy back, and I'm going to pay him back as quickly as I can. And I did. And as soon as I paid him back, I quit that second job because fuck that shit. But yeah, so it was stuff like that. He never really, he always pushed us to do well, I guess. He didn't want us to, I'm trying to think of the right words here. He wanted us to do the best we could with what we had. He wanted us to try new things, if like it wasn't like a complete blind leap. But he did convince me to take a bunch of chances that I would not have taken had he not pushed me to take them. There was a time where I was really, really frustrated at a job I was at. I was a produce clerk at Stop and Shop, and I was going nowhere. I was working like 15, 20 hours a week, and he kept pushing me to look for other things. And he spent his free time when I was working and I wasn't looking for something that would better suit me. He basically spent his free time helping me because I was too lazy to actually, suck it up and go find another job. He basically went online and looked through things and was like, "Oh, he could probably do that." And he would send me things and stuff like that. And there was one thing he was super stuck on. Like, there were a bunch of things that were fleeting, but he was really stuck on this cruise ship. And I was like, "I can't work on a cruise ship. That's crazy." And he's like, "No, you should try it." Like, he's like, "You're young, you live at home. This is like, what other time are you gonna have an opportunity to do this?" And I was like, but God, it seems like so much work. And he kept pushing and he kept pushing. And I was like, fine. So finally, one day, I had enough of a day at work where I was like, and then I went home. I went to his apartment and I was telling him about it. And he's like, "Well, did you apply for the..." And I was like, "No." He's like, "Why don't you do it right now? He's like, I have my computer. You've got all your stuff, your resume on your phone. Just, or actually, no, I didn't even have a smartphone then, so it probably would have been in my email. He's like, just do it. It won't take any time. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. So I sat there, and with him, I filled out this application to work on a cruise ship. I was like, they're not gonna hire me. I don't have any experience doing anything like this. 2 days later, I get a phone call from this cruise line people. They're like, hey, they talk to me and blah, blah, blah. Next thing I know, I'm going down to the shore for an interview. It goes really well. And then they're like, would you like to start in September? You're going to do September through November. Because they worked in 3-month stints. And you could do, if I remember right, because they didn't want people to like get overworked, because you were working 7 days a week. Which to a lot of people who work normal jobs is crazy, and to me it was crazy. So you had to work, I think you could work 3 months on, and then you get 3 months off, and then you could work another 3-month stint, and that's kind of how it worked. And so there were a lot of people who were like worked in these cruise ships like permanently, but would have to do basically work 6 months of the year and have 6 months off, but they made enough money where it balanced out. And so I was like, I mean, I could try it. And I have never worked harder in my life, I don't think. I was working, and like that's not a feel bad for me thing. No, it was good for me. Really, it was, because at that time I was kind of hovering around, and I was going in and out of grocery store jobs, and I was like meandering. I was treading water. And because of my dad's pushing, I took this chance and I went. And yeah, so I worked 7 days a week for 3 months straight. I started in Baltimore, but that ship like didn't have enough passengers for something, and nobody wanted to go to this other cruise ship. And they were going down the list of people, and they came to me, and they're like, nobody else wants to go to this other ship, but like they need some help. Do you want to go home for 2 weeks and then come back? And I'm like, that's stupid. No. And they're like, all right, do you want to go to Portland, Oregon? I was like, I've never been past Indiana. Sure. You put me on a plane, I'll go. Let's go. So yeah, then I think that was the one day I didn't work, but I spent the whole day traveling across the country, and that sucked. And yeah, so I worked 7 days a week for 3 months straight, 14-hour days, but I got a place to sleep. I got fed 3 times a day. I could as well, if I wanted drinks or snacks throughout the day, I could do that. There was a 2.5-hour break in the middle of the day. Our eating time was a break in itself, but there was a 2.5-hour window in the middle of the day where they were like, go get off the boat, go cut loose, assuming that we were docked somewhere. Obviously, if we're not docked anywhere, you're not going anywhere, except for that one kid who jumped off the boat because he's crazy. That's a story for another time. So yeah, so I did this, and I worked, and I kept going, and then I was finished, and I was like, I am never doing that again. but I learned I started to build like a work ethic. Like I was like, you know what? This was tough, but I did it. Was I the best at it? Absolutely not. I was up against people who like had been doing why am I blurry? Stop it. I was up against people who had been doing waitering for a decade, who had been doing housekeeping for a decade. And that was what my job was. I was a server, I was a housekeeper, and I did we set up obviously with the server, we also set up the dining rooms and stuff like that, and made sure all the silverware was nice and the glasses were polished and all that bullshit. And yeah, so I was up against people who were completely trained at this. I had never worked in the closest I'd ever worked in a restaurant was I used to do the cashier at Papa Gino's, but that's not a restaurant, and I didn't do anything. I would wipe a table every once in a while. So so wasn't the best at it, but I survived. There were a bunch of people who got fired while I was there, and I kept staying just high enough where they didn't bother me. So, words of wisdom: if you're ever in a job and you don't think you're doing that great, just make sure there's at least a few people who are worse than you. You'll be fine. You'll do good, unless they need to like cut half their staffs and run. So he got me to do that, and that was a major turning point for like my work history, because after that was when I came back, and I tried to get my old job back, and but the managers had changed, and the manager who replaced the manager who liked me fucking did not like me, so I was kind of left in the wind. And so that basically began my journey through Pepe's, which was a restaurant, and that was a whole thing, and it led me to where I am now, which is at UConn. So, but him pushing me and believing in me and saying, no, you can do this, it'll probably be tough, but you can do it, meant a lot. And I don't know where I would probably still be in grocery stores if he hadn't kept trying to push me. And it's like, overbearing parents are one thing, but like a parent who wants the best for you and wants you to do well, it's a good thing to have. Like, don't take it for granted. So on top of all that, like, yeah, he used to tell me, I really am annoyed that I don't have, like, he would have been a very good person for me to, if I was smart enough back then, to like have him just talk and tell me things from like his younger years and like record that shit, because like I wish I remembered things more thoroughly. Like, I wish I remembered more pinpointed details to his stories, but I loosely remember a bunch of them. He has a sister who we have not seen in 20 years maybe, and that's kind of there was a falling out, but I don't have any information on her. Like, he didn't keep any, and like I occasionally I would ask, but I would like just ask by the first name, and he'd be like, I don't know. But like when he passed, like I couldn't find anything, and I could not remember her last name, and so I was like, well, but she was I feel she was older than him, so it's possible she's passed too. I don't know. But then I had because of her being his sister, we had cousins in that section too, but got no contact. I have no idea how to reach it. I asked my brother, he doesn't know. But I mean, the last time he was in contact with him was the last time I was in contact with him. So yeah. But yeah, so he was adopted, if I remember correctly. He went into the military. He was in the Air Force. He didn't go to war though. I remember him telling me, because I have family members who went into Vietnam, I believe. But he was just over the age limit to get drafted. Like, he was just too old, so they didn't draft him, and then he finished out his time. I said he was a medic, right? And then he was done with that. And now the time frame of these things, I don't fully, like, I have stories, but I don't know where they, like, as a puzzle, I don't know where exactly they fit in. He married my mom around, it was around the time I was born, so it was either it was somewhere between 83 and 85. Might have even been 84. And they stayed together for a really long time, until the late 90s. And then, but they stayed together mostly like to raise us. But what I did find out when I was young, was that before that, my dad was married previously. I no information on her. We used to have this shed out in the backyard. Actually, we had 2 sheds, but one of the sheds had these like crates and stuff. And because I'm a curious child, I used to go through the crates and I would find things. And like one day I found all these old pictures of my dad and some woman and some white dog and a Camaro. And so I was like, what are these? And yeah, so there was a brief conversation about it, and then it never got brought up again. I don't even think my brother knew until I mentioned it after his passing, when we were talking about stuff, because I was the one who wrote his obituary. So I was asking him things, and I had asked him, I was like, did you know Dad was married twice? And I think he seemed baffled by that. But yeah, and then the first question we had was like, well, does that mean we have any extra siblings? The answer was no. No extra siblings. Just me and my brother. That's it. But yeah, so on top of that, so married twice. Then I can't remember if he owned it or if he just managed it. There was a toy store they might have even had like a chain of them, but I think it mostly stemmed I want to say Texas. It was either because he spent a lot of time in Texas, Connecticut, Ohio, and I think a little bit California. Because I know he was stationed in Texas, and I think he was stationed in Ohio. I might be wrong, though. I really wish I had this information. But yeah, so he was basically in charge of this toy store that was also a hunting store, which kind of back in the day they did. Like, think back to when like Kmart was a half toy store, but there was also like the sporting goods store that had guns in it. Crazy shit. I know, 90s were weird. But yeah, this would have been, I'm gonna guess, the 70s. So he told me stories of, he used to go to these various expos that they would have. Like, he went to like the World's Fair, or if it wasn't the World's Fair, it was something that was exactly like it, and it was in like New York. He used to go to shows in like, he told me about going to the Astrodome in Houston. Ohio, he told me about going to places. Pennsylvania, he told me about going to places, Harrisburg and I think Pittsburgh. And to one of those stories, he told me that he was coming back from bad with locations. He might have been coming. He was passing through Pennsylvania, and he had a basically it was if it wasn't a station wagon, it was something like that. And it was full of things he had picked up at the show, which, because it was a hunting show, was guns. So he had a car full of guns, and he was driving through what he described as a very seedy neighborhood, and the car broke down, and he was like, oh no, I'm in trouble. And some people approached his car, and he went, well, this is it for me. And he rolled down his window, and he's like, yeah, the car's acting up. And they're like, no, like, it's like, here, put it in neutral and push it over this way. And he's like, am I gonna get killed? So they helped him push the car to like one of their driveways, and it was I can't remember what it was. It wasn't a spark plug, but it was something like that. It was minor that just knocked it out. And yeah, they were all like at home mechanics, and they just fixed his car and sent him on his way. And he was like, "This is some of the nicest people I've ever met." Don't know who they are. Glad they didn't see the car full of guns. But I think he might have had like a tarp over it, but still a ridiculous concept. But yeah, stuff like that. He trying to think. Yeah, he on top of like all that stuff, he told me that what things he really wanted to do. He was fascinated by which I mean, I guess maybe I kind of understand, because I look at things a certain way too. It goes with the ADHD thing. But he used to tell me about how he was fascinated by display windows, like not like a dinky store, but like giant, like you go to like Times Square and stuff, and like the big Christmas shops and stuff, and like those open window displays that look absolutely ridiculous. He loved that shit. And he would he used to come in early on weekends for his stores to do stuff like that, but he really wanted to do it in like he wanted to do one of those stores. He wanted one of the Times Square Christmas stores so he could do that shit, which I'm disappointed he never got to do. He got to do it on a smaller scale, but I mean, never got to do the ridiculous thing, but it's still cool. Yeah, he was the reason I became enamored with sports for many years as well. He pushed me and my brother to get into sports, and we fell into different things. Like I played soccer for 6 or 7 years, I think. I was never terribly good at it, but I wasn't bad at it either. I scored 1 goal the entire time I played, which sounds stupid, but a lot of time I was playing goalie and defense. So I didn't do badly, but I definitely wasn't like somebody who was going to go to like middle school or high school and be on the soccer teams. That was not going to happen. Brother, however, played Little League for many years, including being on an all-star team with fucking Gino Oriema's kid. I don't remember his name. He would remember his name. But him, like, he kept, I think Justin played, my brother, played baseball, soccer for 1 year, maybe 2. But baseball was his calling. And, like, whereas I was at soccer, he was really fucking good at baseball. Like, there got to a point early on, and I'm older than him by 89, 84, 4.5 years. I think that's correct. October 84. Yeah, 4.5 years. And there got to a point really early on, like I'm talking like 3 years into him being in Little League. So maybe he's 12 and I'm like 16, and I can't practice with him anymore because he throws too fast because he was a really good pitcher. He hits too hard because he was a really good hitter, and he would hit the ball over the fence. So I pitch the ball to him, and I'm not a pitcher. I can get the ball over the plate in a decent manner, and I can hit the ball in a decent manner. I'm okay at it, but I never played the league. Probably should have in retrospect. But yeah, like I would try and play be catcher for him, and my hand would be killing me. And I'm like, but I think he hurt himself later on, and then that just kind of derailed it. And yeah, that was that. But when he was playing, really fucking good. Like, way better of an athlete than I ever was. And we both pretended to be basketball players as well. Which, we could both shoot the ball. We just couldn't do the... Well, I'll mostly speak for myself. I couldn't do the other things. I was bad at dribbling, and I was definitely bad at dribbling and keeping the ball away from somebody who was trying to take it from me. I was bad at guarding, and I could shoot the ball up until about the point where somebody got in my face and put their hand up. And then I was like, stop. Um, but other than that, I have decent aim, which I don't know really how useful it is in any other thing. But yeah, it's good. But yeah, that was another thing. He pushed us to go to play sports and to be active, which was a good thing. We were constantly active. We lived right near a baseball field because we lived 2 houses down from an elementary school when we were growing up. So from like I don't know how old I was. Let's say 6 to 16, maybe. I think it was 2000 when we moved. So yeah, 6 to 16. So like that's a good 10-year gap where we lived right next to a not only an elementary school with a baseball diamond and basketball hoops, it also had this massive hill, and we would just walk to go sledding every winter, and then walk home. It was super easy. Didn't it took us usually we spent more time walking back up the hill than we did going back and forth to our house and to the destination. Like, it was ridiculous. It was great. But on top of like doing sports, my dad was a big sports fan, so I used to, because I mean you kind of follow what your parents do, and like I mean my mom rooted for the Cowboys, but I think she just liked their colors. I don't think she actually cared about sports. In later years, she did, like, because she was living with this other guy, Dave. She did start actively rooting for the Red Sox and the New York Giants, the football team. But as well, I think it was just to go along with it. I don't think she really cared deeply about it. But my dad loved the New York Yankees, and I kind of get it in the right time. When I started watching the Yankees with my dad, it was the early 90s, so the Yankees were hot garbage. This is like 91, 92. They had people like Alvaro Espinosa, and Steve Sax. Remember Steve Sax? No one remembers Steve Sax. But they had Don Mattingly. Everyone liked Don Mattingly. Mustache, great. Oh, wait, did he have a mustache? I think he had a mustache. I'm 50-50 he did. But yeah, so yeah, we used to watch the Yankees all the time, and this was around the time when I started to realize I was enamored by like numbers and statistics and stuff. So he would have me write, like, because I would read the newspaper, or I would look at the sports page of the newspaper, and I would look at like the box scores for like the baseball games and stuff like that, and or basketball games and stuff like that. And I would be like, oh, so he batted that many times and he hit that many times and all that sort of stuff. So he would have me do out I don't know what you call it. It's not basically it's the equivalent of having an active box score that you keep tallies on, and basically he would have me write out the players who were playing, the batting order, and then I would do a box for every time they came to bat, and I would do what they did. I'm like he struck out, he got a double, he flied out, he got a single, blah blah blah, stuff like that. And then I would go through, and at the end I would do out the box score, and I'd be like, look what I did, and he'd be like, that's very good. But I would do that all the time, and it got me to. It was a good thing for me because, as I said, I still do have ADHD. This was something I could focus on, and I liked that, because other times I was like, crazy. But I mean, I also was a kid, so I mean, kids be hyper. So yeah, so he'd have me sit there, and I would write out this stuff, and yeah, and then I would start doing it with. He really liked. We didn't really watch professional basketball, and the only team I ever rooted for the entire time I've ever watched professional basketball was the Mavericks. And then when they won the title, I was good. That was it. But yeah, college basketball, we really liked UConn. and at the time, UConn was starting to come up into their own. Like, this was also the same time, so it was like 91, 92. They the first year, I remember the first year I actively sat and watched them with my dad. They went to the NIT and they lost in the first round, and everyone was really disappointed. But I don't think they had been, if they had been to the tournament recently, or no, they had been to the tournament recently and they made it pretty far, and then they lost whoever their major player was, which might have been Scott Burrell or Tate George. Timelines are weird in my head. But they lost one of their major players, and then they kind of tapered off. But then they started to get good again, or like really good though. And then UConn, the men started coming into their own, and they started doing well. And then that was around the same time where the women started coming up, and they started creating like a dynasty. They're kind of hovering at the moment, but by hovering I mean like they're like the sixth best team in the country, which is an off year for them, which is crazy. But yeah, so I would do the same thing with basketball. Like, I would put all the players' names down and be like, he got a 2-pointer, he got a free throw, he got a 3-pointer, like stuff like that. And then I would, at the end, I would tally it up. I did, yeah. Yeah. So that was that, and yeah, and we didn't have I would occasionally catch him watching football, but it was never an active thing. We watched the Super Bowl. Like, the Super Bowl was a thing we watched, and that was during the time where Dallas was had a dynasty for that brief window of time. And for some reason, I hated the Buffalo Bills. I think it was because my parents rooted for Dallas. I was like, oh, Buffalo, even though they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row, and it's super sad now. But aside from that, we didn't have a local team we rooted for. Every once in a while, my dad would pick up some sort of sports thing, like, for me, that he found at like a tag sale. And I remember him giving me a New York Giants, it was like a picture book thing, but it had like information in it and stuff. And it was like, it was the year they won the Super Bowl. It might have been the year they beat the Bills. So it might have been, because they beat Washington beat Buffalo, and then the Giants beat Buffalo, and then Dallas beat them twice. I think that's how that went. Either that or New York and Washington are reversed, but I know Dallas was back to back. But yeah, I think it was the year that the Giants won the Super Bowl, and then there was like this picture book thing, like Guide to the Last Season, and my dad got me that. So I remember reading that a lot as a kid. But aside from that, he didn't really root for any local teams. The Patriots weren't a Connecticut thing yet. Like, nobody in Connecticut cared about the Patriots. Like, this was even pre-Drew Bledsoe. And nobody liked the Jets. No one liked the Jets. But like, there were occasionally Giants fans, and I had a couple of Redskins fans at school. But this was around the time, I'm getting a little off track, sorry, where, because we didn't have a local team, that was when I saw Tampa Bay for the first time, and they had those ugly creamsicle uniforms, and they were terrible, and I was like, that's my team. I don't know why, but I was like, they're weird. I like them. Got a guy named Hardy Nickerson on their team. Their quarterback's Vinny Testaverde. John's in. They were bad for many years. But yeah, so that was another thing, and that was a good time spent with him. He used to, I've seen so many Westerns because of him. So many. I never need to watch another Western again. Like, hundreds. And I could not tell you the name of them. A lot of them blend into each other. If he wasn't watching Westerns, we used to be one of those people who had VHS tapes and the blank ones, so we would record movies on, like, but we did the thing where you could make it where it was lower quality, but you could fit like 3 movies on a VHS. So we used to have like these VHSs with like 3 movies on them, and it was like, ooh, back in the day, it's a good time. Yeah. But yeah, many movies. And yet with all those movies available to us, almost the entirety of the 90s in our youth, me and my brother just watched Twister, Independence Day, and D2 The Mighty Ducks. We watched each of those probably 100 times. It was a good time. There's a part in D2 The Mighty Ducks where the very end, I don't know why. I bring this up to him every once in a while, and I found a clip of just the part on YouTube and I sent it to him. But there's a part where the Iceland coach they've lost the game and the Ducks have won, and the Iceland coach goes up to his star player and he's like, "You lost it for me," and the player goes, "You lost it for yourself." And my brother had this thing where he rewound it and played it over again. I'm like 30 times. It's awesome. I don't know why. The thing is, I was laughing the whole time too, and I don't know why, because it's crazy. I actually want to rewatch that movie. It's been a little bit. I think it's been a little bit for all of them. I can't tell you the last time I could tell you beat by beat how Twister, Independence Day, and Mighty Ducks 2 go, but I don't think I've seen any 3 in 10 years. If I've seen any of them in 10 years, it's been Independence Day. And every once in a while I'll try and watch D3, and D3 sucked. Don't watch D3. Mighty Ducks 1 is good. It's a good movie. But yeah, so many movies. Very early on, my dad was not a gamer, but except every once in a while there was something he really liked. When I was a kid, he would play Atari with me, and it was mostly Pole Position. Maybe Pac-Man too. And then I would try and play other games, and I'd be terrible at it. I was like 6. I didn't understand. And then on the Nintendo, that was more my mom, because she really liked the puzzle games, so she played Dr. Mario and Tetris and kicked my ass at them. The only game I played with my dad on Nintendo, though, was the flight one, Top Gun. And none of us could ever land that plane. That shit sucked. Why did you do that? Bad game design. And then like years later, we would go on, and he wouldn't play anything with me at all. Not that I ever really tried to show him anything, but I mean, every once in a while there'd be like a PC racing game though. Like I remember there was this Lamborghini game that we had on PC in like Windows 95, and it's probably terrible. I could probably find it, but it's probably terrible. But we used to try and play that, and he kind of liked that because we bought like a steering wheel, so it was like you're actually driving the car. In 1995 PC graphics. But yeah, so there was that. But years later, when he retired, he had to have shoulder surgery, and I think he had to have shoulder surgery on both shoulders, or maybe that was my aunt, but he definitely had shoulder surgery. And when we were younger, for many years, my dad and my mom would always go bowling, and they were both really good bowlers. My mom especially, she flirted with a few 300 games. I don't remember ever seeing my dad get close to it, but he was a good consistent bowler. He can get like 200-ish average, which I don't even touch that. But because he had the shoulder surgery, and he had there were other things wrong with him too, but he couldn't. He wanted to go bowling, and we used to play like par 3 golf too, but he couldn't do that either because shoulder stuff. He saw an ad for it and then tried it in like a store like Best Buy, the Wii Bowling, and so he's like, yeah, I really like this. I played this Wii bowling thing. I thought it was pretty neat. So like for years, like we had been like, we don't know what to get Dad for his birthday or Christmas or anything. Cause like he was always very like, I don't want anything. I'm good. So we'd get him like little knickknacks, and he'd be like, thanks. He'd be like that's cool. Or we'd give him gift cards, and he'd be like, thank you. Or we'd take him out to eat. But this time I was like, oh. So I think I went out within that week, and I was like, here you go. So I bought him Wii bowling, or I bought him the Wii, and I bought him the sports pack thing. Proceeded to like it took him a few tries to get used to the nunchuck thing and like how to do it, but like as soon as he got it down, he would consistently get like at least like 250 in those games. I know my brother scored 300 in that game at least once, but yeah, nope, kicked my ass at that too. Like, all right, fine, just beat me at everything. I'm not good at sports. I like sports. I'm just not good at them. I wish I was. But yeah, not much of a gamer. Music. So as much as I love music, as you can tell by the channel, that never seemed to be something my dad had. If he had interest in it, he didn't show it anywhere near as like he didn't show it anywhere near like I do. My mom showed it a little bit more. Like she had a pretty decent vinyl collection, and would regularly listen to music. My dad, I would find my dad humming and singing to himself more than I would hear him listen to music. But I can confirm he liked Neil Diamond, he liked Elvis, and he liked Billy Joel, and he also liked modern country, but not too modern, because I'm pretty sure if he heard the country that started becoming infused with hip hop, he would have been a little cross about it. Not that he had a problem with that, but like he did not. Neither of my parents liked rap at all. Like at all. And I think it was mostly the vulgarity, like because they dealt with our metal, but like if bands would get like a little too like sweary, he don't like it. And but actually no, there were hip hop artists who, if they didn't swear a lot, my dad would just like, okay, fine, whatever. Like Outkast, I remember him being okay with, because Outkast didn't swear that much, or swear. I feel they swore, but probably not that much. Whereas like Limp Bizkit, well, I know it's not rap, but like swore all the time, and he'd be like, no, I don't want this. Get it away from me. Whereas my mom, any sign of hip hop, she's like, no. To the point where she, it's a funny thing. She hated this one song in particular, and it's one of the few times, at least past their first album, where they used rap stylings. She hated Pardon Me by Incubus. Hated it. And it was all because of the verse, like the chorus, whatever. The Pardon Me, well, that whatever. It was the rapping parts in the verses. She's like, this sounds terrible, and I hate it, and I want it to die. It's really funny. She got really angry about it. Never play this again. All right. Helps that I don't actually like that song very much anyways. But yeah, so that was it. But yeah, we grew up actually I felt I had a good musical upbringing actually. And it actually, a lot of the songs I heard as a kid I still like. He used to, this will only work for people in Connecticut, but both my parents used to play the same radio station anytime we were in the car, and that was it. One radio station, and it was 102.9, but it was Big D 103, I think it was called. But it was just oldies. It was just stuff from the, I want to say 50s and 60s, might have leaked back into the 40s, but I'm talking like pop rock stuff or the box top stuff. So like the Beatles, the Turtles. Oh my god, I'm blanking on any band. Who does little Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs? Like all that period of music. Um, and like that was all we heard, like for many years. Uh, and the thing is, I didn't. Most of my friends, if I ever spent time with them, I don't recall them regularly listening to music, like because I had no like knowledge of like I would hear things fleetingly, and I would hear band names fleetingly. Like I remember sixth grade, so it would have been sixth grade. Ninth grade was 98. So 97, 96, 95. So 1995. So I'm 11. 11 was the first time I ever heard the name White Zombie. I had no idea what that was. I was like, what the hell is White Zombie? And what's an Astro Creep? I don't know what it is. And then I think that was also the first year I heard the name Bush. The next year was the first time I heard the name Korn. And then in 8th grade was when I started to actually is somewhere around 7th and 8th grade. I think that was also around the same time I heard Rage Against the Machine as a name for the first time. Now, I'm saying that I've heard their names. I did not know what any of their music sounded like. And then I had a friend who started going through a darker music phase at the time. I don't know what to classify it. Because it was kind of all over the place, but it was a lot of industrial stuff. So he started listening to bands like Nine Inch Nails. He didn't like Marilyn Manson though. None of my friends did. But I'd heard the name, and I was told he was a bad man. Bad man. Don't listen to the bad man. He's Satan. I'm like, okay, Satan, man. So yeah, so I started hearing the name Nine Inch Nails. And then, so 98, I think, was when I finally, or 97 was the first time I started listening to my friends, like, started influencing me, and I started listening to music of my own accord, which started because most of my friends were into it, except I should have leaned into this, my industrial friend. Most of my good friends were into pop and hip-hop, but like of like the mainstream variety. So like the first bands that I heard, who I was like, it was like first music I really like connected with on my own, and I was like, music, yay. It was like Spice Girls, Hanson. I don't think the boy bands had quite hit yet, like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. Christina Aguilera came out around the same time. Britney Spears was starting to come up. And then like, but yeah, and then I would listen to like Will Smith or whatever. And yeah, so I just kept hearing this music on the radio. And, but then eventually, like, I got tired of, because pop radio, I got tired of hearing the same 10 songs every day, all the time. And so I started checking out other stations, and that was how I started getting into alternative, and then industrial, and then where I went from there. But back to the point, yes, they unintentionally built a foundation for my love of music, because the songs that they would play in the car, like on the radio, like I would remember them, and they would get stuck in my head. And then like I would try and record them. I had like a cassette player, so I would record them. I would play the radio in my room, and then I would try and record them on the radio or on the cassette tape, and then I would try and keep compilations, even though I was terrible at mixtapes at that time. Not that much better at it now, but try. It's a little easier now, at least. So yeah, so they as well were they built a good foundation for me. My dad as well had a guitar, but I've never seen my dad play a guitar. I have, however, seen my mom play guitar, and she's all right at it. My uncle, who as well has passed, was quite good at it. He was more of like country, in the country western vibe of things, but he also really liked Black Sabbath. So hey, there you go. He gave me a Black Sabbath album when I was like 16. It's a good time. That was good. But yeah, lots of good times. I can't. I've lost my place, and I can't think of anything else to say. He when even after we stopped like making big deals out of like Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff like that, and Easter, like my mom didn't care anymore. She's like, it's Thanksgiving, I'm not cooking. And we're like, okay. But my dad, no. My dad liked to cook. So like Thanksgiving, he'd be like, and like, early on, he was like, yeah, I'll stop over at like 2:00. We'll have food. And then like, but as time went on and like he was starting to get older, like I was like, I gotta start helping more. I gotta start picking up things and like learning. I probably could, if I wanted to, properly cook a turkey with all the times I've helped him cook a turkey. I just have no interest in cooking a goddamn turkey. I don't like it that much. If turkey's there, I'll eat it. But going through the effort of making it myself, I think I'm kind of good. I'll make all the sides though. Good. But yeah, he always just like, he's like, no, Thanksgiving. And so I would come over at like 9 in the morning and I'd be like, all right. He's like, I've already got the turkey in the oven. I was like, all right, cool. I was like, what do you need me to do? We peeling potatoes? Peel some potatoes. So yeah, so we'd do that. Christmas, he would still wrap gifts for us. Easter, I think he might have stopped the last couple of years. I can't remember. I do know there was a good period of time where like I might have been 30 at the point where I would still get like one of the ridiculous candy cane things with actually no, that was at Christmas, but I would get Easter stuff and I would get like a basket of candy and shit. But it's not till later in life that you realize that you appreciate those sock and underwear gifts. It's a good time. It's like, oh, I don't have to go buy socks and underwear, and I can throw out my old shitty stuff that has holes in it. Get out of here. But yeah, he continued making holidays at least somewhat magical, and he made them important. Like he tried to keep us together and doing stuff on the regular basis. And I'm hoping in the next couple of years that I can start building my own, like I hate when I'm like, I know the word I need to use. It's just not in my head. But yeah, build my own, like, those annual things, oh my God, fuck this. But just kind of start having my own stuff happen, like what I do every year. Traditions is the word I was trying to think of. Oh my God, I am stupid. But yeah, over the next couple of years, I want to start building my own traditions, make these things like I want to help it live on a little bit. Like do something on at the very least, do something on Christmas, do something on New Year's, do something on Thanksgiving, I guess Easter, fine, whatever. St. Patrick's Day, I don't give a shit. Valentine's Day, I don't give a shit. All the other ones I don't care. But those, like, I want to start building something, like make the life feel less meaningless. Like I'm less so that I'm floating on this death coffin with everyone else. But yeah, that's I guess that's gonna be it for now. Maybe if I think of more things to talk about, I'll do another video, but I didn't want it to. There was no intention to make this like a sad video like that. Like I got the shitty stuff out of the way in the beginning, and then I just talked. That was the goal, and I did it. And oh my god, this was like an hour long. Nobody's watching this whole thing. And if you did, if Cucamonga, if you watched the whole thing, write Cucamonga in the comments. Best. A+. But yeah, so thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next time.